Hello and welcome to the Real World Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. Be sure to give us a like, hit that subscribe button, hit the bell to get notifications of all the videos we do here at the Real World. If you're a movie fan, if you know of movie fans, they will no doubt get a lot out of this channel. Today, we are covering multiple topics. We're going to be talking about The Gray Man, which just hit Netflix this weekend. We're going to talk about our top 3 favorite spy movies of all time. We're going to also be mentioning all the news out of Comic-Con from Marvel and DC. And we're going to review the new Jordan Peele film, Nope. So stick around. It's going to be a good episode. A lot of good info for you here. Here we go. All right. So our first topic here on the new episode of the Real World Podcast is The Gray Man. So we're talking about The Gray Man. It's a new movie. Just hit Netflix this weekend. It's directed by Joe and Anthony Russo, the Russo brothers, who directed many great Marvel films: Captain America, the Winter Soldier, Civil War, Avengers Endgame, Avengers Infinity War. They're really popular directors, directed some big movies, and now they've gone over to Netflix and directed this kind of spy action film. The film stars Ryan Gosling and Chris Evans. We also have Ana de Armas here, Billy Bob Thornton, Alfred Woodard. Really, really good cast that they've assembled here. And it's also written by the same writers that they worked with, Christopher Marcus and Stephen McFeely. They worked with them on the Marvel films as well. And the composer, Henry Jackman, from those movies is back. Those 2 Captain America movies, he composed the scores for those. Even the casting director, Sarah Fenhaley, who is a casting director on all the Marvel movies. So it's kind of a MCU reunion of sorts. Here we have, but they're doing something a little different. You know, it's a little more grounded. It's not in any way connected to any superhero stuff. And I was watching some interviews with them, and they said they did want it to have a bit more of a gritty feel, more realistic feel than, you know, there's no super heroics in it, basically. It's kind of a more simple plot. And
no science fiction,
right? Exactly. So this movie, a new collaborator for them, the cinematographer Stephen F. Winden. He's a frequent collaborator of Justin Lin, who directed a lot of the Fast and Furious movies, as well as Star Trek Beyond. And I think he's a really good cinematographer. So the movie is 2 hours, 9 minutes long, had a budget of $200 million. So this is one of the biggest budgets of any Netflix movie. Big budget here. And look, I thought it was an entertaining action film. I really had a good time with it. I mentioned the cinematographer because I think that's one of the major highlights of the movie. I think it's really well shot. I think the use of color is really good. You know, the Russos, they got a little flack for the color on the Captain America movies, but they purposefully desaturated a lot of the color on those to give it a more grounded feel, which I thought was a smart move. But here, it's funny, for a movie with the word gray in the title, there's actually a lot of color here, particularly in the opening action sequence. There's a lot of good use of color, very vibrant color palette here that they're dealing with, and really enjoyed those aspects of it. Writing is good. You know, I thought the script was solid plot, you know, fairly simple to follow. You know, characterization I thought was good. All the characters, I understood who they were and their motivations. The cast, I think, is another highlight. Gosling, I've liked him in everything I've seen him in, and I think he does a good job here as well. He's very charming, very charismatic, very likable character, who I think is you know, relatable. They give him a kind of backstory that you know, creates a lot of sympathy for the character. Evans is having a blast. I mean, he's just playing an all-out sadistic villain in this movie, and you can tell he shed the Captain America mantle, and he's just having a blast playing this crazy bad guy with this terrible mustache, which is just so much fun. And there's a good amount of humor in it too, not just from his character, but from Gosling and some of the other characters. They inject humor at the right moments that I thought worked well. De Armas is another one. Ana de Armas, she's excellent. She's only been in a few movies that I've seen, but she's becoming very popular very quickly because she does have a very specific both look and kind of just vibe to her characters that I think she just really does a good job presenting them and making us, root for her in all of her roles that I've seen her in. And she does really, really good job here. Of course, I mentioned Billy Bob Thornton, who's, kind of veteran actor at this point. Everything I've seen him in, I like him here as well. I think he's a great kind of mentor figure, really kind of the heart of the movie in a way. And I think he does a good job. Alfre Woodard, she plays a kind of smaller role, but she's another kind of mentor character here. And I think she did a good job in her role. The one to look out for is her name is Julia Butters. She plays the character Claire, who again is kind of part of this heart of the movie. And I've never seen her in anything. I don't know if she's done anything else, but she did a phenomenal job. She's one to watch. I think looking forward to her career. Did a really, really good job in her role. Of course, it's an action movie, so you're gonna have tons of effects, tons of stunts, fight choreography. All of that I thought was really solid. A couple of the effects moments were a little wonky for me, but I think overall they did a good job with it. And the stunt team is to be praised. I mean, they really crafted some incredible fight sequences, shootouts, car chases, I mean, all those things that you expect from an action movie. They really, really just nailed it here. I think a couple moments I thought were a little over the top maybe, but I thought overall they did a good job grounding it in a reality and making it exciting to watch. So overall I enjoyed it. I'll give my star rating in a minute, but what did you think, Bert, of The Gray Man?
Well, Cam, I got to tell you, with this one, I was just really disappointed that it
Okay.
had to end.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. I hear you.
this movie rocked. Let me tell
Yeah.
you what, this was so, I started watching this movie, got about a half hour into it, had to stop. I was interrupted a couple times. And so later on in the night, I had a chance to resume. And then I rewound it to the beginning and started again because the first half hour was so engaging. I just
Yeah.
wanted to see it again.
Right.
Anyway, so I watched it about 1.25 times.
Okay.
But yeah, this movie was terrific.
Yeah.
I thought it was essentially it was Bourne. It was like the Bourne character
Right.
without the memory stuff,
Right.
but made by people that just have a much higher sense of style.
Right. Yes.
No, and no, they're not the exact same movies, but I'm just saying it had that kind of feel to it. But
Yeah.
it's like take the Bourne movies,
Crank it
but
up a
make
little
them really
bit.
glitzy. Yeah,
Yeah. Right.
really incredible camera angles.
Yeah.
A lot more color and a lot more
Right.
interesting visuals.
Yep.
So that says a lot because I like almost all of the Bourne movies a whole lot.
Yeah. Me too.
And I was just I was kind of blown away by this movie. I mean, really, I can't wait to see it again.
Right.
Just sort of mention a few specific things. The tone seemed just about right in it,
Right.
which is always delicate for a movie
Yeah.
that has action and comedy and things like that.
Right.
And you mentioned the visuals were just, very just like that first scene with the fireworks and
Oh
how they were
yeah.
coming down in with the probably drone cameras, I'm guessing.
Right. Yeah. Right.
It was in Bangkok, that scene.
Yep.
Just
Yep.
just all these sweeping camera angles.
Yeah.
Yeah, the score by Henry Jackman was
Mm.
so intriguing to me. Just the
It
whole
was.
time, it felt like there was this sort of underlying, almost horror sound
Yeah.
to the score, and yet
Sure.
and it's pumping and throbbing and like throughout the whole thing.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
I was just it just brought me into it the entire time, the
Yeah, and the
entire
use of
running time.
soundtrack was cool too, because a couple
Mhm.
times they have like needle drops that I thought
Yeah,
were well placed, not
sure,
overdone or
sure.
anything.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's funny because the film opens with sort of a kind of a honky tonk um sound to it when Billy Bob is talking to Gosling's character.
Right.
And I thought, oh, this is going to be kind of a sort of a laid back, sort of silly thing. No, and then it immediately goes into this
Right.
Bangkok scene. So
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
was interesting how that changed it up quick, and they never did go back to that sort of what you expected from the first couple notes.
Sure.
Um,
Sure.
and here's where I'll compare it a lot to Bourne. Um, the main character is, I guess his name is Cortland Gentry. but he's obviously goes by Six, which is
Right.
much cooler. I'm thinking about
Yeah.
taking a number for myself just to
Right.
everybody call me because it sounds pretty cool. 34 or something like that.
Right.
Anyway, I like how when he walks into a room, I mean, he's a cold-blooded killer, really, and he doesn't walk in usually with a gun. He looks
Yeah.
around the room and grabs various things that he's going to use as implements, and then
Yes.
uses those
Right.
as his fighting, for fighting with, and that
Yeah.
is so much fun.
It
The
is very
idea
inventive.
that he can take, I don't know, like a shoe or anything, and just
Sure.
sort of use that in the scene to
Right.
dispatch the bad guy. I love those
Yeah.
kind of things, and that reminded me a fair bit of Jason Bourne, because I
Yes.
think he does that. He improvises a lot,
Exactly.
too,
Exactly.
and
Yep.
that's fun. The film doesn't spoon feed us everything. You've got this great airplane sequence,
Oh yeah.
where at one point there a couple of the characters, Six and another guy are hurtling toward the earth, and they're both struggling, and
Yeah.
it's a little bit difficult to tell exactly what happens, and then the scene just cuts, and you don't even
Yeah.
get to see the end of it. And
Right.
then about a scene later, you see Six sitting sort of near a cliff, and you see the
Yeah.
other guy sort of hanging
In
by
the
his
background.
parachute in the
Yeah.
background, and
Right.
you're like, oh, that's what happened.
Right.
And I honestly, I don't mind that. I don't
No.
need to see every little thing.
Yes.
I like that sort of fresh approach to it. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
So I also wanted to say that Gosling is really getting just better with age. There's times in
Hmm.
this movie he's very inward, sort of an introvert in this
Right.
movie, and
Yeah.
some of his deliberations with his acting honestly reminded me a little bit of De Niro.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I people may think that's ridiculous. It's partly because I did watch a De Niro film this week,
Okay. Cool.
but
Cool.
I just couldn't help get that same sort of vibe. Like he really
Sure.
is learning that you don't have to just be, out there and zany to be a
Yeah.
good actor. Some of it's just how you portray sort of your inward feelings and expressing
Sure.
them, without being zany.
Yep.
So
Yep.
he was just terrific in this. Kind of came out of nowhere because he's not really a guy that I could list other action movies that led
Yeah.
up to this, that were
Sure.
terrific, I guess.
Sure. Right.
And then I wanted to mention the hand-to-hand combat. They did a lot of editing with the hand-to-hand combat, but unlike
Mhm.
Bourne, where sometimes you couldn't really tell what's going on,
Right.
they allowed us to at least see the actors fighting, and I really
Yeah.
appreciate that. And some of the edits sort of helped the situation, but yet I felt like the fights still brought a lot of the fight still hit really hard,
Right.
and I mean, it was just, yeah, like you said, the stunt team and the people involved in choreographing that stuff.
Yeah.
We're not talking about just one fight scene. I mean, there's numerous throughout
Right.
this
Yeah.
film,
Exactly.
and at no point was I like, okay, here goes another fight scene. No, these were all
Sure.
very sort of intense fight scenes.
Yes. Yes, they are.
And they're clearly all done by the main characters and not stunt doubles.
Yes. Yes. Exactly.
Yeah, they don't really explain why Gosling's kind of like the Terminator, but they don't really explain that in the Bourne movies either. I mean, these guys are, I guess, they're trained to take punches or take knife
Sure.
wounds and just work through it.
Right.
I know that Navy SEALs apparently are also trained that they're trained so that if they get shot, that they know how to carry on past that. And so,
Right.
I mean, that's real life. I don't know that from experience, but
Right.
that's apparently the real life training. So, I mean,
Sure.
I guess someone that's this good at his job in the CIA would have been trained to just go ahead and continue fighting, even if you are stabbed
Right.
4 or 5
Right.
times.
Sure. Sure.
As long as it doesn't slow you down. So,
Yeah.
as far as stuff that wasn't great, there's not. I basically liked everything. There is one scene, and you kind of alluded to it. I think maybe it's the same one I'm thinking of. It's the scene on the train where there's a fair bit of CGI that sort of wraps that scene up, and he ends up
Right.
flying off the train onto a car.
Yes.
And that was the only moment where I'm like, yeah, that was a bit much. I
a
didn't
bit
really
much.
love that.
Yeah. Right. They kind of earned it, up until that point. We hadn't had anything
Yeah,
like that.
yeah.
So I
Sure,
give it a pass.
sure.
But yeah, that
Yeah.
was a moment where I was like, it's a little too much.
Exactly. Yeah, so I mean, needless to say, I thought it was outstanding. It far surpassed my expectations. I thought this movie was going to be a Netflix movie that other studios passed on because they didn't see the potential. And so
Right.
maybe we were going to figure out why that was, but
Yeah.
no. I mean, Netflix is legit like a studio just like the others,
Yeah.
is making some of the best content out there these days. I was really surprised.
I agree. I'm constantly amazed by the money Netflix will dump into something, the talent they're able to get. And I think it's
Yeah.
because the talent, they give the talent so much freedom.
Mm.
Unlike a studio where it's like their producers can kind of micromanage and studio executives are always looking over your shoulder and all this kind of thing. I think Netflix is kind of like Russo brothers, just go make an action movie. Whatever you want to do, just go do it, and I think that's why they've had hits and misses, right? I mean, Netflix,
Yeah.
they are
Yeah.
kind of known for like there's a lot of bad Netflix movies out there, but every once in a while we'll get a Gray Man or
Yeah.
last year we got Tick Tick Boom, which was an Oscar nominated
Mm.
film. I think the year before that, or maybe it's been a couple of years ago now, there's a cool one called Wheelman. I don't know if you've seen that with Frank
Mm.
Grillo. That's
Oh
worth
no,
checking out.
but
Kind of went under the radar.
I like Frank Grillo.
Yeah, you should definitely check out Wheelman. It's basically all in a car, but it's a really cool
Sure.
action movie.
Huh. Yeah, I
Um,
need to see that.
yeah, I enjoyed it. I think at a star rating, I can give it 3.5 now, maybe trending 4 stars. That's about where I am. Where are you at on your star rating?
I'm at 4.5 on
Oh
this.
wow, great,
Yeah, it was fantastic. And there's
excellent.
enough there that I think several viewings down the line, I'll probably still enjoy it.
Yeah, that was my question was, will it hold up on multiple viewings? Because there are some like, kind of twists and turns and like you don't know really where the story's going and kind of keep you
Mhm.
guessing all the way until the end. I wasn't sure if all that would hold up. And some of it's, I mean, it's hard to make a totally original feeling action
Mhm.
movie. I feel like I've just
Right.
kind of seen a lot of this stuff before, even though it was done
That
really well,
exactly. Yeah,
you know?
that's why I said it reminds me of Bourne, but just in
Right.
a lot of ways just done better.
All in all, yeah, really enjoyed it. Highly recommend it. Anyone looking for a fun action movie, I think will definitely get a lot out of this one. All right, so now that we've reviewed The Gray Man, the new spy action movie on Netflix, we're going to go ahead and rank our top 3 spy films. We went about doing this list a little bit differently. These aren't necessarily our favorite spy films. This is how we kind of thought about it. This is how I thought about it. Which 3 movies would I show someone who wanted to see a spy movie? Someone came to me and said, "Hey, what are your 3 spy movies I should check out?" That kind of encapsulate the genre as a whole for you. That's kind of what I was thinking when I was compiling this list, and I wanted to kind of do some maybe more obscure movies people hadn't heard of. Everyone's heard of Mission Impossible. Everyone's heard of all these big franchises. I tried to kind of stay away from that. What was your thinking? Was your along the same lines or?
Pretty similar. Yeah.
Yeah,
I wanted to stay away from Bond and
yeah,
Mission Impossible
right,
and the Bourne series,
sure,
which there's some really, really great ones in there.
right,
But I wanted to pick 3 that I could recommend that are outside of pretty much any other universe. So they're standalone films. Mine
sure,
are probably more well known than yours, maybe,
okay.
but maybe some of them weren't necessarily big hits at the box office. So
Right, right, right. Yeah, I
yeah.
gotcha. Okay, so jumping right into our list, my number 3 is 3 Days of the Condor. This is a 1975 film starring Robert Redford and Faye Dunaway.
Mm,
It's
I haven't seen
directed.
that.
You haven't seen it? Yeah,
No,
you should check it out. It's
I
it's
like
really
Redford.
good. It's directed by Sidney Pollack,
Oh, sure.
and it's based on a book called 6 Days of the Condor. In Hollywood, they don't have time for 6 days, so you have to cut it in half. So move it along a little bit quicker. It's a really great spy film. I consider it a spy film. It's kind of one of those. The spy genre is interesting because there are some that are considered spy films that aren't necessarily about spies. So Robert
Right. Oh,
Redford's
sure.
character, he's not technically a spy. He works for the CIA. He's an analyst for the
Hmm.
CIA.
Sure.
And
Sure.
basically, he uncovers this plot and has to go on the run from these
Oh.
elements within the CIA, or are they connected to something else? He doesn't really know.
Hmm.
He basically he works out of this building in New York, which is the American Literary Society. It's a front for the CIA operation.
Oh.
And he comes back from lunch one day and his entire team is dead. And so he has to
Oh.
figure out, who killed them. CIA, his higher ups think he did it. So, he's not sure who to trust. And he kind of just has to go underground into hiding and figure out this whole vast conspiracy. And it's just extremely well done. The cinematography is wonderful. The editing is really tight. It's just under 2 hours, and it doesn't feel like it. It's full of great performances. Redford, he's probably one of my favorite actors. I think he always delivers. He's been around forever, and he just always does a really good job. This was coming off of it's the 70s era, post Watergate scandal. So there's a lot of kind of distrust of government going around in the
Yeah.
society at that time. So it kind of just hit at just the right moment. I
Right.
think
Right.
in kind of the zeitgeist, and it's had staying power, I think, because it's kind of just always relevant. But yeah, I'd put it among the best, spy movies, paranoid political thrillers, that kind of thing. It also inspired Captain America: The Winter Soldier. This is why they cast
Really?
Redford in that movie.
Oh, I
And
didn't know that.
the Russos
Huh.
definitely look towards this movie to kind of base loosely their plot of Winter Soldier on this
Oh,
one. So
okay.
definitely
Cool.
would be worth watching, going back and checking that one out. What's your number three?
Okay, so my number three is the most well-known of my three, and that is 2008's Get Smart with
Oh,
Steve
that's a
Carell.
fun one. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah,
good.
this is just a check your brain at the door, silly
Sure.
spy comedy. I will say I need to go back and watch the Condor film there. I wonder if
Mhm.
maybe some of the plot from Get Smart was borrowed because there's a scene toward the beginning where Steve Carell plays Maxwell Smart. He comes back to sort of the headquarters. Of control is the group he works for,
Right.
and like it's been demolished, or there's been like
Yeah.
like a bomb went off or something like
Right.
that. And so then
Right.
he has to try to figure out what happened, and he has to jump out into
Yep.
the field, obviously, so that sort of kickstarts the film.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, this movie is just all about just laughs. It's got nothing to do with believability, that's for
Sure.
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 You just throw believability out the window, but there's
Right.
enough of a shell of a plot that I think it's pretty hilarious throughout.
Right.
There's a huge supporting cast in this film. I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
yeah, I mean Anne Hathaway's good as
Yeah.
she plays Agent 99, but
Right.
you've got parts. Some of these actors here are only in the film for two or three scenes, and it's
Yeah.
amazing the group that they brought in, like Dwayne Johnson,
Yeah.
Terrence Stamp, Terry Crews,
Oh
David
yeah.
Keckner, I think is how you say his name.
Uh-huh.
Um, Even James Caan as the president,
Right.
Patrick Warburton,
Yeah.
and then that's I don't think I said Alan Arkin yet, and
Oh
he's
yeah.
he's
He's
just a
great.
tremendously funny actor,
Yeah.
and one of those that almost everything I see him in, I find myself watching him on camera because
Right.
he's always about to say something funny.
Sure.
And then so there's other actors too in it that are just really good and just make it sure it's a silly slapstick comedy, but I always get some big laughs every time I watch it. This may
Yeah.
be one of those that I've had people say, "Oh, I don't like Steve Carell," and I don't really get that. But if you don't like Steve Carell, you probably will not like this movie.
Right.
But
Sure.
he's one of my favorite actors. I love The
Yeah.
Office, and I've seen probably every Steve Carell movie,
Okay. Cool.
including he did was it Crazy Stupid Love that he did with
Yeah, I
Gosling?
like that one. Yeah.
That was funny. Yeah, that
Yep.
was really
Yep.
funny.
It's good.
That movie.
Yep.
And so I think Carell and Hathaway have some good chemistry here. They're 20 years apart. And then they have this subplot about her having a facelift, and so then they're not 20 years apart or something.
Right.
It doesn't really make any sense. But yeah, she's really good in it. So I mean, the movie does have some issues, but I just think it's really funny all the way to the end. And the thing is,
Yeah.
a lot of comedies in the last act of the film, sometimes all the comedy goes away. And
Right.
so I appreciate it when there's still some laughs all the way up until the end.
Sure. Sure. Yeah, I
So
agree.
yeah,
That
yeah, it's just a
that's a
fun
fun
movie.
one. It is.
Yeah, what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I really enjoy it. It is really funny. I've seen it a number of times. It's probably one of my
Mhm.
favorite Steve Carell movies, actually. That the
Mhm.
one that I can watch over and over again. And like you said, the
Yeah,
supporting cast is just stacked. I mean, incredible,
yeah, yeah,
incredible people they got involved in that. I know it is based on a TV series. I don't know if you've ever watched it. I've never seen it.
I've seen I when I
Have you?
was when I was young, there were some replays on TV. It
Okay.
wasn't one I gravitated toward, but
Right.
I was well aware of it and the catchphrases and that kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I thought they did a good job, modernizing it and
Yeah. Right.
everything. So yeah, that's one that I thoroughly enjoy as well. I think it's a fun one.
Yeah. Great.
Okay, so jumping into my number two. Number two on my list is from 1946. So we're going back even further now. Black and white film by Alfred Hitchcock. My personal favorite Alfred Hitchcock film, Notorious.
Oh,
Notorious
I
is a
haven't seen this one.
movie starring Cary Grant and Ingrid Bergman, along with Claude
Okay.
Rains, all big, huge movie stars at the time. And this story is about Cary Grant plays a US government agent, a spy, who enlists the help of a daughter of a German war criminal to infiltrate an organization of suspected Nazis who are hiding in South America. So this is just post World War II, and this came out in 46, literally a year
Yeah.
after the war ended. And it is
Wow.
about them basically tracking down these Nazis who are in hiding
Wow. Yeah.
through this woman who has this connection to them. Very, very suspenseful film. It's, Hitchcock is known as the master of suspense, and this is among the best. I mean, this will have you on the edge of your seat. Just the way he shoots it, the way he edits it, the performances, the music is great in it. And so if you're looking for just kind of old school thrills, just it's a drama. There's really no action in it. It's just a drama. It's just performance, and filmmaking technique. Basically, is what this film rides on. Very well written. It's just tour de force performances by Grant and Bergman. They're just doing an excellent job. And Claude Rains, who's been in many, many movies. He played the original Invisible Man, and he's in some Frank Capra films as well. He's fantastic here. It was funny. I was looking at some of the behind the scenes, and Hitchcock was very critical of his own work, which I think a lot of artists are. And he didn't ever say any of his movies he considered them to be great, but he considered this one the one with the fewest mistakes, is how he put it, which I think is a funny way to put it. But it's just wonderful all around. This movie, beautifully shot, like I said, in black and white. I'm a huge fan of old movies in black and white. Just the stark contrast there and what they can do with shadows and things like that. Very well shot. A lot of good oneers, long one takes in this one too. It's just one I thoroughly enjoy. I've watched multiple times. I have the Criterion edition here,
Mm,
which looks and sounds excellent on
I
HD.
bet. Yeah.
So definitely check it out. It's on a lot of top 100 movies of all time lists. BBC
Oh,
had it on theirs. Entertainment Weekly, American Film Institute, Ebert, Roger Ebert had it on one of his favorite movies lists. So just a classic through and through, and
yeah.
not one of his that gets mentioned a lot,
Yeah.
which is why I kind of like to talk about it more, because out of all I've seen most of his movies, and it's definitely my favorite one. Yeah,
How far
definitely.
into Hitchcock's career was this one? It wasn't like his first movie, right?
No, this, he had, I mean, he came up in the silent era. I haven't seen a lot of his silent
Oh,
films, but I've seen most of his work from like 34, 35 on.
oh, okay.
And so this is about a decade or so into his career.
Okay.
And
Gotcha.
one of his kind of middle of his filmography, but it
Gotcha.
stands out.
Nice.
So what's your number two?
My number two is 1998's Ronin.
Oh, great
Uh,
film.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah. Obviously, you've got a film where there's a sort of this diverse group of former special, various special ops
Right.
people that have, certain skills, and they're
Sure.
they're all brought together to steal this heavily guarded case. They don't know
Right.
what's in it.
Yep.
Few of the characters trust each other. There's a lot of double crosses that go on.
Yeah.
Typical spy movie.
Sure.
Some obviously solid acting,
Mm.
couple great car chases and
Oh
action
yeah.
sequences. But really, Ronin is more of a drama disguised as a spy thriller.
True.
It's really just these heavyweight actors, Jean Reno and Robert De Niro
Hmm.
specifically, have some really great scenes together.
Yeah.
And there's other, Natasha McElhone, who I like a lot.
Mm,
Um, Stellan Skarsgård is obviously really good in it.
right.
Jonathan Pryce, Sean Bean even is in it briefly.
Yeah, right.
So yeah, it's just a terrific drama thriller, I guess is the best way to put it.
Hmm.
Um, I like the fact that these operatives are all from multiple backgrounds and countries,
Right.
and they're all arguably in their prime in this film,
Yeah.
and they're all laying it down, expertly, I guess you could say.
Sure, sure.
And so, yeah, Ronin is a good one. It's got a great score too,
Yeah.
and just one that I thoroughly enjoy.
Yeah, I like that movie a ton. I considered it for the list as well. And
Yeah.
it Frankenheimer, who directed it, he's
Hmm.
I think he might have been like 80 years old when he
Yeah,
directed
he
this.
he died 4 years after this movie came out,
Wow.
actually. Yeah.
Incredible, incredible. He
Mhm.
directed Manchurian Candidate, which is one of my
Oh,
all-time
sure.
favorites.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's incredible that an 80-year-old director comes out and just directs like one of the best action movies ever. It's really
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah, that car chase, I mean, is just one of the greatest of all time. Like you mentioned, the cast is just so good.
Hmm.
Every performance in that movie is really strong. Yeah, it's one that I've seen a couple of times and really enjoy that one too.
Nice. Yeah.
All right, moving on to our number one entries. My number one is 2005's Munich by Steven
Oh, I've seen
Spielberg.
this one. Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, Munich is a harrowing true story. I mean, this is truly an intense film,
Yeah.
one of the
Yeah.
most intense probably I've ever seen. It's again the true story about the Mossad agents who retaliated against the terrorist attacks on the 1972 Olympics.
Hmm.
Um, you've got, of course, Spielberg behind the camera, greatest of all time, just doing what he does, beautifully shot. It's cast is great. I mean, Eric Bana leading. I think this is easily his best role, best performance. You've also got a younger Daniel Craig just before he did Bond
Right. Right.
in
Yeah.
this. Kieran Hines, I think is how you say his name. He's a great actor. I really like. Jeffrey Rush is in it. Just a really good cast, great performances all around. This one, like I said, it's super intense because it really happened. I mean, that makes it
Right.
that much more intense when you realize these guys actually did these things.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's very emotional. You're dealing with them and their personal lives, how that's being affected by what they're doing. And it's very thought provoking too. The final shot is in New York City, and you see the Twin Towers in the background, and
Mm.
that whole thing, it was going through obviously the war on terror at the time, and how that kind of reflects what was going on back then. And Spielberg, all that was very intentional for him. Yeah, really just a solid movie on every level: score, editing, cinematography, expertly crafted
Hmm.
for me on every level. I think it's one of Spielberg's best, and unfortunately, it
Mm.
doesn't get talked. That's another one that doesn't get talked about a lot. I feel like
You're
it kind
right.
of went
Yeah.
under the radar a little bit when it came out. I'm not sure why that happens, but for whatever reason, people don't talk about it as much. So I wanted to mention it here because it is one of my all-time favorites.
Mm.
Have you seen that one?
Yeah, I have seen Munich. Yeah, I saw
Yeah.
it in the theater actually,
Oh, okay.
and I did enjoy it. I must
Yeah.
say though, this is not Munich doesn't there's no overlay of like the history of what was going on leading up to this, and I only knew a little bit,
Sure.
and so it's a bit difficult the first time if you don't know what's happened in the past. Like Spielberg
Right.
doesn't dumb this down for
Yes.
for mass audiences
Sure.
necessarily, and so I
Sure.
found that a bit frustrating because I really need to kind of look into the events more. I mean, I'm aware of like the Olympics situation, the hostages, and that,
Right.
and I'd like to know a little more of the history and go back and rewatch it because it was a very
Mhm.
good moving
Yeah.
film. But yeah, that was the only thing was that I felt like I wish I kind of had more perspective about what some of the content was when I
Sure.
watched it. That's not the filmmaker's fault,
Right. Right.
If
Right.
anything, I like when filmmakers don't have to spell, dumb everything down for
Yeah.
everybody.
Sure. Sure.
Yeah, and it does have a really good film score. That's true. I need to go back and rewatch it.
Yeah, it's definitely worth a rewatch. It's kind of hard to watch for me, honestly. It's like I
Yeah.
said, very intense. A lot of brutal violence in that movie. But yeah, it's just expertly done. So that's my number one. What's your number one?
Okay, my number one pick is from 1996, The Long Kiss Goodnight.
Oh, I like that movie.
Yeah,
That's a
directed
cool
by Rennie
movie.
Harlan. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It was kind of a bomb at the box office. It cost 65 million and only brought in 33 million.
Oh, wow.
Um, and
I'm
ultimately, worldwide,
surprised.
yeah, worldwide, I guess it made 90 million. So it
Okay.
basically got its money back.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, obviously here we've got Gina Davis in the starring role as
Yeah.
kind of like the precursor to Bourne. She has lost her memory,
Right.
and then
Yeah.
she sort of gradually gets it back, and
Sure.
cool things happen when she gets flashes of her assassin ways.
Right.
The reason why I like it, I guess, is mostly the humor. The
Mm,
sort of the middle section of the film, you've got Gina Davis's character driving around with Mitch, played by Samuel Jackson,
right.
and they just let him riff, and it's some of his funniest stuff
Yeah.
that we've ever gotten on
Right.
film. It's so extremely funny,
Yeah.
and then there's some good action scenes. There's a couple that involve ice, like one of them, she Gina Davis plays Charlie, and
Yeah.
she's skating on ice skates. And at one point, she's chasing after these. It's ridiculous that she had time to put on the skates, but
Right.
even still, she's chasing them. They're in a car, and she sort of glides along, and the car's moving in front of the frame. And while she's coasting, she like shoots the bad guys. It's just a really cool
Yeah.
scene, and there's some stuff like that that's really good in it.
Right.
It is a little bit too long. It's a 2-hour film.
Yeah.
It's way too long, but I just really
Hmm.
enjoy this film, and
Yeah.
it's hysterical
Right.
quite a bit, especially the middle bits where they're sort of on the road, and
Yeah.
Sam Jackson just is. I don't know if he. I mean, clearly he came up with some of these because they're very Sam
Sure.
Jackson-y
Right.
lines, but and
Right.
even Brian Cox, who's
Oh,
a
yeah.
great actor from the Bourne series, he's
Sure.
in this, and he has at least one line that just it's jaw dropping and funny at the same time. Like you don't really consider him a comedian so much,
Right. Right.
but yeah, there's just some great humor in it and some good action.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. That is a really fun movie. I've only seen it once, but I really enjoyed it. And yeah, I'm surprised it didn't do well because Gina Davis was so big in the 90s and Sam Jackson
Right.
was a rising star. And, Harlan had done a couple of pretty big movies, I think, at
Well,
that
he had
point.
that other bomb too, Cutthroat Island, that Gina Davis was in.
Right.
I think he was married to Gina Davis at the time.
Oh, really? Okay.
But
That makes
that one
sense.
I think also was considered a big bomb for
Yeah,
some
because it
reason.
cost a lot of
So
money, didn't
yeah,
make any back. Yeah, that's another one I like too.
yeah, I liked it
Um,
too. Yeah,
yeah. Long Kiss Goodnight is definitely a cool movie.
yeah,
Yeah, I'm glad you picked that one. That's another outside of the box choice that I think some people maybe haven't seen.
I bet.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Sam Jackson, always great. Yeah, I like their whole dynamic. That whole kind of it does become like an odd couple buddy road movie, kind
Hmm.
of in the middle, which is fun. And yeah, I remember it having some really good action. And yeah, that's a fun one. Good pick. All right, I want to mention some honorable mentions here because I had a
I
really
got a
hard
couple
time
too.
making this list. I
I got a
had
couple too.
I had a
Yeah, go
lot of
ahead.
movies I wanted to include, so I'll just try to go through them kind of quickly here. One that we just watched last night, which is one of my wife's favorites, Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy.
Oh,
Very
okay.
close to making my list.
Gary
Gary
Oldman.
Oldman, yep,
Yeah, yeah.
Oldman, Colin Firth, Benedict Cumberbatch, Tom Hardy.
Oh,
The list goes on and on. I mean, just a big cast of great actors. Very intelligent film
hmm.
based on a book. Kind of a complex plot. You really have to
Hmm.
pay attention, but it's very engaging and very well shot. And really enjoyed that movie. Um, Wanted to mention, of course, Spy Kids. I grew up on Spy Kids. That's one of my
Sure.
favorites.
Okay.
I can still watch that one. We actually rewatched the first one and we had a blast with it. So, Robert Rodriguez is one of my favorite filmmakers, and that's just a lot of nostalgia attached to that one.
Sure.
Um,
Sure.
Another one I really like, No Way Out, which
Oh,
was
Kevin
maybe
Costner one?
80s. Yeah,
Yeah.
Costner,
Okay.
Hackman, Sean Young.
Right. Yeah.
Really good. I saw that one, I think, a year or two ago for the first time and really liked it. Definitely worth checking out. Another Robert Redford one with Brad Pitt, Spy Game.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
That's a
That one's
really
got a
good.
good score too.
It
That
does,
movie.
yeah. Tony
Yeah.
Scott directed it, and it's
Hmm.
just really well done.
Hmm.
Another Spielberg one, Bridge of Spies, which
Oh.
isn't, I guess, a spy movie really. It's more of like a legal drama in many ways.
Hmm.
It's about him
Okay.
defend Hanks's character defending Mark Rylance, who's they find out is a Russian spy
Oh. Huh.
back in the 60s. A true story.
Oh, okay.
Another true
Okay.
story, and it's definitely. Have you not seen that one?
No, no, I
Yeah,
barely know what it is, frankly.
yeah, came out in 2015,
Okay.
so
Yeah, I
several
missed
years
that one.
ago. But yeah, definitely worth seeking out because it's really well done. Hanks, he's always good. So
Yeah.
that one, another one that was really close to making the list was Argo, um,
Oh,
Ben
yeah.
Affleck's
That was pretty
film.
good. I saw that one. Yeah.
Man, that
Yeah.
movie I think is another great, intense, Iranian hostage crisis back in the
Yeah.
70s. Really good. He's great. I think it's his most well directed film. He's also great. It might be his best performance too. You've also got John Goodman in there. Alan Arkin, who you mentioned,
Hmm.
is in Get
Yeah.
Smart. Really good cast. Really like that one, and they have some funny moments in that one too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, Another one by Tony Scott's brother, Ridley Scott, Body of Lies. I
Hmm.
didn't get to rewatch it, but I
Russell
remember
Crowe.
enjoying it. Yeah, Russell Crowe and Leonardo
Yeah.
DiCaprio are both in that.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I
Yeah.
remember enjoying
That was
that.
good, huh?
Yeah, I remember liking that one. Again, it's been a while since I've seen it, but I wanted to rewatch
Yeah.
it. Trader with Don Cheadle and Guy
Hmm.
Pearce. This one went under the
Oh, I
radar,
like
came
Guy
out in, I want to
Pearce.
say like '07. Yeah,
Oh,
I like Guy Pearce a lot. He's good
yeah.
in this. Don Cheadle is kind of like an agent that you don't know, is he a double agent or not. It's kind of a very
Oh,
like
really?
twisty story that kind of takes you for a loop. It's a fun
Huh.
one.
Trader, it's called?
Trader, yeah, you should definitely check out Trader. um and we mentioned all the big franchises, of course. Mission, Bourne, Bond,
Yeah. Yeah.
all those. I mean, Bond to me is the quintessential spy series. I want to do a whole Bond episode, so look for that on the channel soon. But uh, I'll skip over those and go to Jack Ryan. I like all those movies. True Lies, of course. I think we've maybe mentioned that here before. More spy comedy. Um, but I like that one. The Man from Uncle was one I rewatched and I liked a lot with Henry Cavill. Guy Ritchie directed that. I like the Johnny English movies. I really like Rowan
I did
Atkinson.
see the first one. Yeah, I did
The
see the
first
first
one's
one. It
my
was decent.
favorite.
It was
Yeah, the other
decent.
ones
Yeah.
are not great, but the first one I like a lot. Um, and of course, Austin Powers. Those are
Yeah.
funny, silly movies. But probably my favorite spy comedy is a movie called Top Secret
Oh,
with Val Kilmer.
yeah, with Val Kilmer, right? From the
Yeah,
80s.
that's
Yeah.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
his first
I never
movie.
saw that one. I never
You
saw
never
that.
did.
No.
It's on HBO Max right now, so you need to
Okay.
go watch it. It is absolutely hysterical. I would put it in maybe my favorite comedies of all time. It's that good.
Wow.
It's the guys
Really?
who did the Airplane movie,
Yeah, the Naked Gun stuff.
Naked Gun too. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh, so it's like it's along those lines like that.
definitely. It's
Okay.
just
Okay.
ridiculous.
Yeah, yeah.
But to me, every joke lands.
Okay.
I crack up throughout this
Really?
whole movie. It's
Huh.
one of those that I can turn on anytime and watch, and I will always get a kick out of it.
I definitely need to go
Um,
back and watch that. It's been enough times gone by.
you should. It's very silly. If you're into that kind of humor, you'll enjoy it. It kind of is a mix of a World War II spy movie and an Elvis musical,
Oh,
which sounds like it doesn't make any sense, but they kind of make it make sense in the movie.
gotcha.
It's great. Like I said, Kilmer's first role, first leading role, which is cool
Okay. Yeah.
to go back
Yeah.
and see. Yeah, Top Secret 1984. If you haven't
Okay.
seen it, I highly recommend it.
Okay. Nice. Okay. Good.
You have any
Yeah.
honorable mentions?
I've got three that I'll mention
Okay.
that I went back and rewatched. And it's funny because my list was going to be completely different. And I basically threw out the first three that I rewatched.
Oh, okay.
And one of them was True Lies. And not that it's a
Yeah.
bad movie, it's just that
Okay.
I found that for whatever reason, watching it these days, it doesn't have the effect that it used to. I mean, back in 94, it seemed pretty revolutionary, but now we've gotten so many good spy movies, even spy comedies. I'll use Night and Day as an example. Like me, Night and Day is just so much better than True
Okay.
Lies.
Okay.
That it's not James Cameron's fault. It's just that it's evolved so much better, I think, to that point.
Okay. Sure.
So I ended up I'm gonna do a review, but I lowered True Lies down to 2.5 stars. I just
Oh,
didn't
wow.
enjoy it nearly as much as I used to, because I
Wow.
back in '94. I mean, I thought it was fantastic.
Okay. Okay. Interesting. Yeah. We'll have to have when we do our James Cameron podcast, when
Hmm.
Avatar 2 comes out, I'm sure
Hmm.
that'll come up because that's to this day one of my all-time favorite action comedies ever.
True Lies.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, again, it's not that it's bad. It's just the jokes, for some reason, I just wasn't laughing. And it's probably
Okay.
because I've seen the film so much.
Okay.
But
Sure.
there are movies that I've seen a ton that I'm still laughing at the lines.
Sure.
And so I
Sure.
don't know why, but I'm just like, this just feels kind of tired right now. I don't know why.
Okay. Okay.
In modern day. The second one I wanted to mention is I think you may have mentioned this one, Enemy of the State. Did you mention that one?
I didn't, but that's one
Oh,
that was should have been on my honorable mentions. I don't know why it wasn't, but yeah, that's a great
another
movie. I like.
Tony Scott one.
Yep.
Tony Scott, right? Yeah.
Yep.
Um, yeah, you're right, not Ridley.
Yeah.
And it's a good movie too. Gene Hackman is the best part of it, I
Oh,
think.
absolutely.
And, but I don't know if it's the Will Smith effect. I'm still kind of
Right.
going. I don't really want to see a lot of Will Smith right now.
He doesn't hit anybody in it, I don't think.
He tries to avoid hitting sometimes,
Right,
which is always a
exactly.
good thing, kids. But it's still a good film. I
Yeah.
just didn't feel like I wanted to push that one because I ended up downgrading it from where I had it before,
Okay. Okay.
star wise. So I
Hmm.
mean, I still give it 3.5 stars.
Okay.
And then the last one was the biggest one that dropped, and it's a film called Salt. Have you seen Salt?
Oh yeah, I like Salt. Yeah, Angelina Jolie.
Yeah, I liked it a lot, and I'd seen it 2 or 3 times before this. But
Okay.
when I rewatched, I just noticed like a couple really big plot holes this time,
Yeah.
and it just bothered me. Frankly, I'm like, why did I like this film so much? I don't know if it was just the kind of week I was
Yeah.
having. I mean, I had other films that I watched that were lots of fun,
Yeah.
including the one we opened with,
Right.
Gray Man.
Yeah.
But some of these were just starting to. I can tell that they're starting with time to move down. There's stiffer
Yeah.
competition coming in, and
Sure.
yeah, I just didn't. I would give Salt probably 2 stars at this
Yeah.
point, because of the plot holes that I found, and I didn't want to find them. I just was going,
Sure.
what about that whole thing over
Yeah.
there? Kind
I
of
remember
that
that when I was
stuff.
watching it. I haven't seen it in a very long time.
Yeah,
I've maybe
yeah.
only seen it once, maybe twice,
Okay,
but
okay.
yeah, I remember even thinking that when I watched it, like, wait a second.
Yeah,
You
it
know,
was very noticeable. So I
right.
previously gave it 4 stars. Probably didn't give it much
Mm,
thought about the plot holes,
right.
but this time I just wasn't digging it. So
Yeah,
that's another one. It's okay. It's not bad,
sure.
but not nearly as good as it used to be for me.
Gotcha. All right. Well, those are our top spy movies. Check out the ones you haven't seen. The ones you have seen, let us know what you think in the comments below. Give us your top three spy movies of all time. We'll be happy to have a conversation with you. All right. So this weekend was San Diego Comic-Con 2022. They took the year off, of course, last year for the pandemic. And so they were back in
Mm.
full force. All the nerds had gathered in San Diego to line up in the heat and get a glimpse at the newest Marvel or DC movie. And they had a lot of fun surprises. So they started off, it starts on Thursday and runs through Sunday. So Thursday, they had a panel on Dungeons and Dragons. This is a new movie coming starring Chris Pine. It's called Honor Among Thieves, and Michelle Rodriguez is in the film. Basically, the way they described it in the panel was Game of Thrones meets Princess Bride. So it's kind of like that intense kind of fantasy epic mixed with kind of like a lighthearted tone of
Yeah,
like
that'd be a
Princess
lot of
Bride.
comedy if it's like Princess Bride.
Yeah, exactly. It has a lot
Okay,
more
okay.
humor in it. It reminded the trailer. Did you get to see the trailer for
I did
this?
not see the trailer yet. No.
Okay, I put it on our Facebook page, so
Great. I will
check it
check it
out
out.
there.
So
It's
this doesn't belong, like Dungeons and Dragons isn't an ongoing film project, right? I mean, there's not other
no,
films like it, right?
yeah, I think they tried to make a Dungeons and Dragons film back in like the 80s or something, and it bombed
Oh,
big time. It was a very low
okay.
budget, but this
Okay.
is Paramount. This is a big studio behind it, big
Okay.
budget,
Okay.
and like I said, pretty good cast. So Yeah, they're hoping that this kicks off a franchise, basically.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And like I said, it has that kind of we got a lot of Guardians of the Galaxy vibes from it.
Oh, okay.
That kind of feel like it's a team coming together. I don't know much
Okay.
about D&D. I know,
I don't
people are
either. I
huge
know
into it,
nothing.
but
Yeah.
there's all these. I know that's basically a fantasy world, much like Lord of the Rings, where you can be an elf or a dwarf or a man
Yeah.
or a thief or a knight or whatever you want to be. And it's basically, it seems like Chris Pine is assembling this team to
Hmm.
defeat this kind of dark magical
Hmm.
being or something.
Okay. Huh.
And it looks like a lot of fun. Like I said, I don't know much about that world, but the
Yeah.
movie looks like it's going to be fun.
Okay. Sweet.
Next up was The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power. This is the series based
Okay.
in Middle Earth that's coming to Amazon Prime later this
Oh.
fall. And the trailer, looks great. I mean, it looks very much like they're honoring what Peter Jackson did in the films. It very much has that same look and feel to it. But it's the
Wow.
backstory. So they're going back even before The Hobbit to when these
Oh.
rings were first forged,
Oh, right.
and going through that whole kind of origin story.
Well, they
So
show that prologue about that. So this
right,
is all new actors and
it
whatnot,
is
or
new
no?
actors. It's I think
Okay.
even before that prologue, because that prologue
Oh,
is
okay.
them fighting Sauron. It's kind of like the last alliance or
Yeah.
whatever. This is
Yeah.
before that, even like when he
Okay.
first gave the rings out, which you do, I guess, see little
Oh,
glimpses of that as well in Lord
okay.
of the Rings. But this is, yeah, that expanded upon that whole story. I think Elrond
Nice.
is supposed to be in it, and
Okay.
all these different characters like Galadriel that we met in the
Mhm.
movies, but they're much younger here.
Oh, so
Um,
different actors then. Okay.
right,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, and I think it's
Nice.
about 10 episodes or something like that. So
Is it a
um,
short series or is that just season one or we don't
I,
know yet?
I'm not sure if they've revealed if they want to do a
Okay.
season two or not.
Okay.
From what I
I'm definitely
understand,
interested in it.
yeah, I haven't heard that it's supposed to be like a limited series. So I
Yeah.
think they can continue it. I mean, there's so much material to work with.
Yeah.
Tolkien, he had all
Right.
kinds of writings about that
Yeah.
world. So they could
Yeah.
probably go on for 20 seasons if they wanted to.
Isn't Amazon the network that had the Wheel of Time? I never watched that, but
Think you're right. Yeah, I do remember hearing about that. I never watched it either. But
yeah.
yeah, they've had several series that have kind of come and gone, much like Netflix or any of the streaming series. It's kind of,
Yeah.
you kind of need a big IP like Lord of the Rings, I think, to
Yeah.
get people really hooked in.
Mhm.
Unless the show's just really good and word of mouth spreads. Yeah, we'll see how it goes. I don't think Peter Jackson was involved,
Hmm.
so I don't know
He's probably
why.
not
I don't
happy
know if
about that.
he was just done with it. He'd
Yeah,
done
maybe,
6 movies,
maybe.
and he's like, "You guys just go ahead.
Right,
I'm
right.
gonna go make something else." So, anyways, that looks interesting. The next thing that dropped was Keanu Reeves was at this panel for a comic book that he's had a hand in called Berserker. And it is about basically this immortal warrior who's kind of lived through the centuries, and he's modeled after Keanu, who looks like Keanu Reeves in the comic. But they've announced they're doing a series and a movie.
Hmm.
So they will get a Netflix movie that they're going to start shooting next year, as well as a 2-season anime. So for
Oh,
any
okay.
anime fans out there, look out for Berserker.
Now
That's
is Keanu
coming.
playing in the movie? Is he in that movie then?
Keanu is in the movie. Yeah, he
I
is
mean,
the
that only makes
star.
sense, but
Right,
yeah,
right. Yeah, he is the
right.
star of the film. Going to
Okay.
produce it as well.
Right.
So that should be interesting. But what I got excited for was John Wick 4. They
Hmm.
dropped the trailer for that as well, which I'm a huge John Wick fan.
I need to
Um,
watch all of those. I haven't seen any of them.
really? Oh,
Yeah, and I
interesting.
like Keanu Reeves a lot. I
Yeah.
started the first one at one point, got interrupted, and I just need to go
Mm.
back and watch all three now. I've never seen them.
Yeah, you should. It's funny because I hadn't seen them until the third one was about I think I saw the trailer for the third one at the theater. Something I was watching. I was like, whoa, that looks cool. I've heard about these movies, but that trailer was awesome.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so we ended up going to Redbox and renting the
Ah,
first two the weekend before the third one came out.
oh, sure.
And so we watched both of them and were just blown away and
Hmm.
went to the theater and saw the third one.
Yeah,
And yeah, can't wait for the fourth one. This is
nice.
just such a great action series.
Hmm.
Chad Stahelski directs it. He's the stunt double for Keanu Reeves on the Matrix films.
Oh wow. Okay, I think I know you're talking about then
Yeah,
from the behind the scenes
yeah,
stuff I've watched on the Matrix.
right.
And
Yeah, so he did all the stunts for those, and now he's a
yeah,
director.
okay. And I think I watched the trailer for this. Isn't Lawrence Fishburne in it as well? Or maybe I
Yep,
saw a teaser.
Fishburne is in it. Yep,
Yeah.
yep. Ian McShane is in it as well. A lot of good actors in the John Wick films. Halle Berry was in the
Sweet.
third one.
Hmm.
Donnie Yen is going to be in this fourth one. So yeah, really cool movies. And that trailer, I thought, really delivered. A couple more things on Thursday they announced. One is we are getting the first movie from Avatar Studios, not James Cameron's Avatar, The Last Airbender. So the M. Night is not involved
Gotcha.
in this one, unfortunately for
Oh
you,
shoot.
Bert. But the creators of the original series, the animated series, have created Avatar Studios, where they're going to start making movies and series based on that universe. So
Okay.
it will be an animated film focused on Aang, who is the lead character of the original animated series, which is really exciting for fans like me who watched all that. Well, they didn't announce any other films or series, but at least we know now what the first movie is going to be. It's going to be Aang after that original show, so him a little bit
Yeah.
older
Right.
with his friends growing up. So that'll be fun. The next one I thought was cool because I'm a big Gremlins fan.
Mm.
I like both Gremlins movies. I know a lot of people don't like the second
They're
one,
okay.
or
They're okay.
you think they're okay. Yeah, I'm,
Yeah,
I'm
they're
a
just
huge fan.
okay.
We watch them every Halloween.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So they're doing an animated series based on that, which is called Secrets
Oh.
of the Mogwai, and that'll be on Netflix. They got Zach Galligan back as Billy, so the original actor is going to come back and voice his character.
Mogwai is the type of creature it is that it?
Correct. Yeah, Mogwai is
They're
what.
not gremlins.
Yeah, they're gremlins
They're
after
just called that.
they're fed after midnight. That's when they
Oh,
become
oh,
gremlins.
they turn into gremlins.
Right. The
Okay,
Mogwai.
I forgot
Yeah.
how that goes. Yeah,
Right. You're not supposed to feed them after midnight. Don't get them wet.
yeah. And it's just local
Don't
time, right?
expose them
They're
to sunlight.
checking the midnight local time, right? They're
Exactly.
looking at their
Whatever time
watch.
zone you're
Okay.
in.
Right.
My wife always
Fair
mentions
enough.
that. She's like, it's always midnight somewhere. Come on. They can't, this isn't right. I'm like, it's the time zone they're in.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. They're tracking that. Yep.
Right. So yeah, it's interesting. I guess he'll be kind of a bookend of kind of a narrator, maybe, is what I'm guessing, because
Mm.
they said that the series is actually set in 1920s Shanghai.
Oh.
So it'll be about the origins of these creatures and where they come
Hmm.
from. So that will
Okay.
be, I'm sorry, I said it was on Netflix. It's actually on HBO Max next year. That will debut.
Okay.
That was it for Thursday. Friday, they talked more animation. So Marvel and DC both came out with their new animated projects. I Am Groot is going to hit Disney Plus August 10th. So it's coming up pretty soon. These are a series of 5 animated shorts. Vin Diesel is back
Oh.
as Groot. Bradley Cooper is back as Rocket. And those will be lots of fun for the whole family, I'm sure. I guess James Gunn was involved in that too, which is cool.
And
I
there's
don't
still
know.
a Guardians 3 on the horizon.
Guardians 3, we're going to talk about that in just a second. Yes,
Okay,
absolutely.
yeah.
So the other animated series, What If, on Disney
Right.
Plus is getting a second season.
Oh, okay.
And a third season has already been ordered of that as
Oh.
well, which is cool. So that will drop in early 2023. People at the panel got a first look. They didn't release it online. From what I understand, it revealed more of Captain Carter, Haley Atwell, back as the alternate version of her character. I think they said one of them that had me really intrigued was going to be about what if the Avengers defeated Thanos before he could snap. I kind of follow that story, how that would have gone. That's kind of interesting to me. So a lot of cool things they did with that what if show, and I'm really excited for the second season. X-Men 97. So if you're a 90s kid like me, you grew up watching X-Men in the 90s. From 1992 to 1996, there were 5 seasons.
Series?
An animated series that I grew up on, and they're continuing it. That's why it's called 97, because the show ended in 96. So X-Men 97 is going to pick right back up where it left off, and it will be on Disney Plus next year.
So now, when I saw X-Men that came out in 2000, I think it was,
Yeah.
I had never heard of the X-Men, and I
Okay.
didn't know there was a TV show.
Sure.
And so was that first X-Men film a continuation of the animated show?
No, that first X-Men film was totally its own thing. It was kind of, just basically kind of like the MCU does, basically just taking the inspiration from the comics and the animated series and everything else that's been done and putting their own spin on it. Yeah, it was very much its own thing.
Yeah.
That first X-Men movie,
But
which
they're
I'm a
going
huge
back.
fan of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they're going back and continuing the animated show, but that's not because of anything having to do with the movies.
Correct. Yeah, it's not
Okay.
in any way tied into the films or the MCU. It's totally its own
Okay.
thing, just connecting to that first show.
I'm still waiting for that MCU tie-in.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're
I
getting
mean,
to
more
that now.
more than
So,
more than what we've gotten in the past, at
right,
least.
sure. Well, what if is tied in with the multiverse and everything that's going on with the MCU? And a lot of the MCU actors do return to voice their characters in that show. A spin-off of that show. So in season 1 of What If, we got an episode called What If Zombies. And basically, it's taken from one of the comics called Marvel Zombies, where this virus is unleashed and a lot of the superheroes become zombies.
Oh, okay.
And so that's going to be its own separate series now called Marvel
Oh,
Zombies. That will come out in
huh.
2024. And it got a TVMA rating. So it's kind of more of an
Oh,
R-rated, more violent horror vibes kind of Marvel
oh,
animated series.
interesting.
So that'll be interesting to see what they do with that. The last thing Marvel announced was Spider-Man Freshman Year, which is going to go back and show us the origins of Peter Parker in the MCU. Because if we remember in Homecoming, we don't get to see him bit by the spider. We don't see Uncle Ben. We don't see any
That's
of that.
right.
So
Yeah.
they're doing an animated version of it,
Oh,
which will show
who's
us
gonna
his
voice
first
it?
year of high school. We don't know who's
Okay.
voicing him yet. It's not Tom Holland. I don't think they revealed
Okay.
who's going to voice him. But some people suspect this might be another multiverse thing because
Mm.
the concept art they released showed us. You remember the scene in Civil War when Peter Parker meets Tony Stark? He's there in the apartment with Aunt May sitting on the couch.
Yeah.
There was a concept art of that, but instead of Tony, it was Norman Osborn, who's the Green Goblin, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so people are
Yeah.
like, oh, okay, so they're twisting this and making it a multiverse
Huh.
thing. I don't know. They didn't get into details on it, but more of the concept art kind of confirmed it because we're seeing a Doc Ock that does not, because Doc Ock, the first time he meets Doc Ock is in No Way Home. So we're seeing Doc Ock, Scorpion, Rhino, all these villains, as well as Daredevil is going to be in this show. And they did confirm Charlie Cox is returning to voice Daredevil, but it doesn't seem like it's connected with the mainline MCU. It looks like it's going to be a variation on it, which will be interesting to see. And that debuts in 2024. So that was it for Marvel. DC Animation have a few things up their sleeve. They're always great. If you haven't seen DC's animated stuff, it's really good. I highly recommend it.
I've heard it's good. Yeah.
Yeah, I've got one of my entire shelves down here is just DC animated movies. They're really good. So they announced RWBY Justice League, which I guess RWBY is a anime. I don't know about it. It's a CG animated like fantasy thing that I guess they're crossing over with the Justice League in some way. Again, I don't know much about that. I'm sure fans of that are very excited, but I just don't know much about it. The things I am excited about are Batman, the Doom that came to Gotham, which is an Elseworlds tale. So it's like an alternate reality Batman story from Mike Mignola, who is the creator of Hellboy. So it's kind of this like horror-esque Batman story where this evil is unleashed upon Gotham that he has to fight. So that will be an interesting kind of unique animated film. Legion of Superheroes. I'm a big fan of this team in the comics. They're from the future. They're all superheroes from the 31st century. And they typically have all these kind of time travel adventures and fight all these different kind of villains in the future. So that'll be fun to see. They've never gotten an animated film before. The next and final announcement they made was Justice League War World. So War World is connected with a character called Mongol. He's one of the big bad villains that the Justice League face off with in the comics. He's appeared in various animated series And so I'm guessing he'll be the villain there. We don't know if that will tie in with their current shared continuity. They have I think 4 films now that are in a shared universe with their animation. So I'm suspecting that will tie in there, but I'm not sure. Their next animated film actually releases this Tuesday. It's called Green Lantern Beware My Power, and that's part of that whole animated universe, which I'm excited to review on the channel this week. So be on the lookout for that. All right, so now we're on to the big day Saturday. This is Hall H. This is the big 6,000 seat auditorium where all the big announcements come from DC and Marvel.
Oh.
So DC came out first on Saturday morning, and their panel kicked off with Shazam: Fury of the Gods. So this is the new Shazam film, sequel to Shazam, starring Zachary Levi.
I really
He's
like
back,
that
of
movie.
course. Me too. I'm a huge fan of it.
It was hilarious.
Yeah, it's really funny, has a lot of heart, and it just, I thought they nailed the tone on that one. So this one picks up a couple years later with Billy Batson and his whole family now of superheroes. They're all kind of saving the world together, doing their own thing. And then in comes Helen Mirren and Lucy Liu as the villains. They're playing the daughters of Atlas, and they're here to kind of take the power of the gods back from these children that are just kind of unwieldy with their power. Is kind of what the vibe of the trailer is. It still has a lot of humor in it.
That.
Yeah, you should watch the trailer. The special effects look, of course, even better, and still has, like I said, the humor, the family aspect, all that, which I really enjoyed from the first one. So looks like a really good sequel. They brought out the cast. They had a brief kind of talk about the movie, little Q&A, and then they were done.
When's that coming?
Revealed a new trailer. That is coming December. I know it's this year.
Oh, it's this year. Good.
Okay. It is this year. Yeah, I think it's the week after Avatar. Yeah, they moved it because I remember it was on Avatar's date, and they moved it to the following week, so they didn't have to suffer the wrath of James Cameron. Yeah, it's December 21st, 2022. So December 21st, Fury of the Gods hits theaters. Very excited about that. So that was the end of that, and then they moved on to the next panel, which was Black Adam. So Dwayne Johnson, the lights go down in the auditorium, and Dwayne Johnson appears. He's like on this big platform that's like way above the crowd, you know, and he's got the big screen behind him and all this fog and everything. And then all this lightning and thunder starts behind him. And he's in, you know, like I said, full Black Adam costume right there in Hall H, which was pretty cool. Yeah. yeah. It was pretty neat. So grand entrance.
A well-known superhero, because I hadn't heard of him until maybe a couple months ago.
He's one of the lesser knowns. I mean, for comic fans will know him for sure, because he's tussled with Superman, and you know he's connected with Shazam, and all that. So yeah, he's not very well known though among wide audiences. This is, you know, his first movie, and so it's pretty exciting. They revealed some new footage. He's already had a couple trailers out there.
I gotta watch those. I didn't realize they were already out.
Yeah, they're worth checking out. He's assembled a pretty good cast. Pierce Brosnan is in this one, and of course you have The Rock, and you have a couple of other actors that are lesser known. One's a kind of rising star. His name's Aldous Hodge. He's playing Hawkman, which is a character we've been dying to see in a movie for a while. He's pretty big DC character. So they revealed some new footage, brought the cast out, had another little Q&A, and that was it. A little disappointing, honestly, from DC's side, just because the first, you know, we've had footage from Shazam, very brief, like teaser they released a few months back, but we got a new trailer, which was great. Some new footage from Black Adam. Being there, I'm sure, was great. You know, you got to see The Rock in person and this whole cast and do the Q&A. But
isn't there a Flash movie coming out?
Yeah, they didn't even talk about Flash. They didn't talk about Aquaman 2.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
They didn't talk about, they have a Batgirl movie they're working on, Blue Beetle. I mean, they have all these movies in development. Even, you know, Robert Pattinson's new Batman movie, they announced the sequel, but no like tease, no poster, like literally nothing about any of those other movies. I really don't understand it. I don't know what their marketing department was thinking. They were asleep at the wheel on that one. But that was it for DC. So
Hmm.
again, a little bit of a letdown, even though we got some cool new footage. So in comes Marvel later in the day, and they're of course ready to just knock it out of the park as they always do. It's kind of the story of Marvel and DC has been for the past couple of years, unfortunately. But so Kevin Feige comes out on stage, president of Marvel Studios, and he talks about how phases 1 through 3 are known as the Infinity Saga, right? It was all about the Infinity Stones and Thanos and kind of
Oh,
built
okay.
towards that. Phases 4 through 6 are the multiverse saga,
Oh,
which we've of course already had hints at with Doctor
sure.
Strange and all the
Spider-Man.
rest of it.
Yeah.
This is the multiverse saga. It will be, phases 4 through 6. We are coming up, he announced, at the end of phase 4, because the fourth phase ends with Black Panther Wakanda Forever. That will
Hmm.
be the end of this fourth phase of MCU films.
Is that next
Um,
summer that one's coming out?
that comes out in November.
Oh, it
Yeah,
does
so
come
that'll
out
be
this year.
November. Yep,
Okay.
it'll be this year,
I
November
didn't love the
11th.
first one.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
okay. It's really long for one thing. I don't
Okay.
know. Yeah, it's not my it's not one of my favorite Marvel films.
Interesting. We'll have to do a
Yeah.
whole MCU breakdown because yeah, that's up pretty high on my ranking.
Is it? Yeah.
Um, so they announced that they of course dropped that amazing trailer, which is just stunning. I
Oh
cannot
yeah.
wait for this movie. The way they're dealing with the death of Chadwick Boseman, who passed
Yeah.
away,
Yeah, right.
and was supposed to be the star of the film. They had to rework the entire script, but the story they found, I think, is going to be really exciting. They're
Hmm.
introducing a character called Namor, who is basically Marvel's Aquaman. He's the ruler
Oh,
of Marvel's version of Atlantis,
gotcha.
and so it'll kind of be the war, looks like the war between Atlantis and Wakanda. It's kind of what it's building towards. Looks very interesting. So that one got the crowd excited. That was actually the last thing they did at the panel was that trailer. The first thing they actually kicked off with was She-Hulk. So that's the next
All
series
right.
coming to Disney Plus. Mark Ruffalo comes back as Hulk.
Oh, he's in that?
He is going to be in it. Yep, yep. They're
Oh.
also going to be Tim Roth as Emil Blonsky from the original Hulk film with Edward Norton. So
Oh.
the villain in that movie is going to play a role here as well. From what the trailer seemed, it seems like she has to defend him in court for some reason. So I guess she's like the new superhero attorney. It's called She-Hulk Attorney at Law, and it kind of has that like courtroom vibe mixed with MCU stuff, but it very much feels like a kind of the MCU's first sitcom in a way, like
Okay.
very much more humor. There's even a couple of fourth wall breaks where she's like looking at the camera,
Okay.
talking
Is it
to
more of
us.
like a teen audience, or did I read that somewhere?
I don't know if teen, I don't know if I would say teen audience was for Miss Marvel, which just ended,
Oh,
which
that's
I
probably
really
what I read.
liked.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
She Hulk looks like it's little skewing a little bit older.
Okay.
It's going to get into her like dating life as she's dealing with her
Okay.
superpowers and stuff and all that. So
Huh.
that drops August 17th.
And that's a
Um,
series, right?
that's a series. Yeah, it'll be eight
Yeah.
episodes.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep. So
Oh,
that'll
that's
be
gonna be interesting.
phase 4. So phase 4 ends this year. Phase 5
Hmm.
kicks off next year with Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantum Mania,
I've
is the
heard of this.
title
Yeah.
of this. Peyton Reed returning to direct. Of course, Paul Rudd and Evangeline Lilly back in the title roles.
Okay.
They did reveal footage. They didn't release it online,
Okay.
but the from what I understand, it revealed they're of course going back to the quantum realm. Most of this film will take place there.
Hmm.
The footage showed that Ant-Man has now become a bit of a celebrity, uh, written a book about him saving the world, and he's kind of let fame go to his head a little bit. He's distant from his daughter and from his family, and
Okay.
his daughter gets lost in the quantum realm, and
Hmm.
that's kind of the mission of this movie. And his daughter in the comics becomes a character called Stature. So she gets her own kind of suit, her own abilities, and that kind of thing. So that'll be fun. Michael Douglas is back. Michelle Pfeiffer
Mhm.
is back as well. And Bill Murray appeared in the trailer as a new character, some bizarre character they meet in the quantum realm. I don't know who he's playing. They haven't revealed what the character's name is, if he's from the comics or not. but that will be really interesting to see Bill Murray in the MCU. The other big reveal was that Kang is the villain. So Kang was introduced in Loki. At the end of Loki, he was the guy kind of pulling all the strings. Basically, he was a variant of Kang. So now we're going to meet the actual original Kang in this movie, and he'll be the big bad throughout the multiverse saga. He's kind of the Thanos of this this whole story. So he'll be a main character there. That movie is released February 17th, 2023. In spring of 2023, we're getting the next series, which is Secret Invasion. So this is based on a popular comic book series about the Skrulls, who we were introduced to in Captain Marvel, the shapeshifters. So they've kind of infiltrated Earth. And in the comic book, they have a lot of nefarious ideas about what they want to do with our planet. And this show is going to reintroduce Sam Jackson back as Nick Fury. We haven't seen him in a while, so he'll be back in the show. Colby Smulders is back as Maria Hill. We'll have Olivia Colman in the show, introduced to the MCU. Another actress, Emilia Clarke, will be in the show as well. Yeah. So her introduction to she'll be in the show Emilia as well.
Clarke. Okay.
Yep, absolutely. Wow. So that's an exciting one. That's one of my favorite comic series. It'll be really interesting to see how they adapt it and how they tie in the Skrulls and do that whole thing.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you a question about that. Yeah. So it's not a different universe. Like they're gonna have these movies about the Skrulls, and it's post Endgame and all that kind of stuff, or
correct. Yeah, all this is post Endgame. From what I understand, they haven't revealed a ton about it, but yeah, from what I understand, it is picking up after the events of Endgame, and it is in the mainline MCU. But again, this is the multiverse saga, so I guess they could say, tricked you, that one was in a different universe, and now we're doing something else. I don't know.
Well, that's the thing, because the when you have huge films like Infinity War and Endgame and all the stuff that came before it, to then have to follow it up after that is kind of tough, because if it's in the same universe, then you're going to say, well, wait, that doesn't really make sense though, because remember now this has happened, and you know what I mean? Like you have to keep all that stuff straight. So I get why they're doing the multiverse,
right?
But I mean, they know what they're doing, but I mean, it would seem difficult to follow up in this universe with a lot of things.
I agree. Yeah, it's been difficult to keep track, even for a hardcore fan like me, with shows like Loki that deal with all that stuff. But I think they've done a fairly good job so far. I don't think anything's gotten too unwieldy, but yeah, with all these series, it's going to be interesting to see where they go with it and how they handle all of it. Next up was Guardians 3. So Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, James Gunn came out on stage with the cast, and they announced that film will drop May 5th, 2023. They did show some footage. It looks very emotional from what I understand. I didn't get to see it, but it looks like it's ending the story. It's going to conclude their trilogy. This iteration of the Guardians will not exist in the future of the MCU. The film, from what I understand, is going to dive into Rocket's origins, which were only hinted at in the other films. It will introduce the High Evolutionary, who's a big kind of one of these big cosmic characters in the comics, who is responsible for creating Rocket. And he has a lot of plans that the Guardians have to thwart, basically, in this movie. They're going to follow up, of course, on what's going on with Gamora after what happened with her in Endgame. You know, she doesn't remember any of them. She doesn't know who they are. She's off doing her own thing. So they're kind of searching for her. We'll get, of course, more Groot. Groot, they said in the trailer, looks a little bigger, a little more buff, a little more Vin Diesel-esque is what Groot said. Groot, yeah, I don't know.
Really?
It'll be interesting to see how they do that. Cosmo, who's a character that comic fans will know. Movie fans only got a glimpse of him in the first Guardians movie. He's a cosmonaut. He's the first dog in space. He's a Russian animal that was launched into space, and the Collector found him. And he's part of the Collector's menagerie. And so he's actually going to play a role here in this movie, which will be interesting to see how they include him. And Adam Warlock will finally be unveiled. We got the tease of him. He's a huge character in the comics, very important role he plays. Actually, he played in Infinity Gauntlet, Infinity War in the comics. So I'm curious to see how they're going to use him in the multiverse saga. He'll probably play a big role moving forward. He's played by an actor named Will Poulter, who's a young actor I really like. He was in the third Narnia movie. He played Eustace.
Okay.
Really good actor. I like him a lot. So that's it for Guardians 3. Throughout 2023, we're going to get several more series. One of them is called Echo, which is a spinoff of the Hawkeye show. She was a character introduced there. That'll drop into summer. Loki season 2 is also coming in summer 2023. Tom Hiddleston returning.
Really? Oh, good.
Yep, that's getting a second season. July 28th, 2023, The Marvels will arrive with Brie Larson back as Carol Danvers. And we'll also get Miss Marvel in that show, in that movie. That's why it's called The Marvels, because Miss Marvel, for those who saw Miss Marvel, knows that at the end of that show, they kind of tee up this new movie, which is pretty cool. So that'll be fun. Later in 2023, November 3rd, we're getting Blade. So Mahershala Ali has been cast as the new Blade, taking on the role from Wesley Snipes, who originated it back in 1998.
I forget this is part of Marvel.
Yeah, he's a Marvel character. Yeah, okay. Vampire hunter. So they're introducing vampires to the MCU now, which should be fun. Getting a kind of horror-esque action movie. I'm curious to see how he's going to differentiate himself from Mr. Snipes and those movies, because I actually like those movies. I really like the second one. Guillermo del Toro directed it. I think it's a lot of fun. The third one's not very good at all, but I'm really curious to see how they're going to tie him in to the MCU. He actually has a vocal cameo at the end of Eternals. Did you ever get to see Eternals?
I've not. It's on my watch list. But
yeah. Stick around for the post credits, and you'll get to at least hear his voice there. So that'll be cool. At the end of 2023, also we're getting Ironheart. This is a newer character in the comics. Her name's Riri Williams, and she is kind of this genius inventor, much like Tony Stark, inspired by him to kind of take on the mantle of the Iron Man. Ironheart is what her character is called. Gotcha. And we actually also get a glimpse of her. She's going to be introduced in Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. So she'll actually be in that movie first, and then she'll get her own 8-episode series on Disney Plus next year. At the end of 2023 / beginning 2024, we'll have a spinoff of WandaVision called Agatha, Coven of Chaos. So this is the character played by Catherine Hahn in WandaVision. She's getting her own show. Okay. That'll dive into more of the aspects of the kind of mystical elements of the MCU. The big announcement was that Charlie Cox is returning in his own Daredevil series on Disney Plus called Daredevil Born Again, which is also the title of one of the best Daredevil stories in the comics. So I'm curious to see how they're going to adapt that into a series. Although he's not just getting 8 episodes, he's getting 18 episodes in his series. So it'll be a much longer show. Vincent D'Onofrio also coming back as Wilson Fisk, Kingpin. That is scheduled for spring 2024. Did you ever get to watch that show on Netflix, Daredevil?
No, not the show. No.
Okay. Yeah, I like the show a lot. Much better than the Ben Affleck film.
Yeah, that's what I saw was the film.
Yeah,
which was
actually.
Great. Yeah,
I don't mind the director's cut of that movie, but it's not great. The next movie announced May 3rd, 2024. We're getting Captain America: New World Order. So this is Anthony Mackie taking on the role of Captain America after his stint on Falcon and Winter Soldier, which was another pretty cool show. Kind of tracked his becoming Captain America in that show. That's kind of what that show's about. Him and Bucky, dealing with the fallout of Endgame and him taking on the mantle of Cap. So he's going to get his own movie, which is pretty exciting. And then rounding out Phase 5, the end of Phase 5 will be Thunderbolts. Thunderbolts is a team comic book. They're kind of like the Suicide Squad for Marvel, basically. They're kind of these kind of anti-heroes
Yeah.
And so we've kind of gotten hints of them already. And you saw Black Widow, right?
Oh yeah.
If you saw the end of Black Widow, the post-credit scene is her sister Yelena at
Hmm.
her graveside, and then Julia Louis-Dreyfus walks up and
Oh
says,
yeah.
"Hey,
Yeah.
you want to take care of who's been who did this to your
Right.
sister?" And
I
gives him
remember that.
give her a picture of Hawkeye,
Hmm.
and then you get that plays out in the Hawkeye series. But she shows up in Falcon and Winter Soldier as well. She's kind of recruiting, it seems like, these kind of like
Uh,
morally ambiguous characters. Like this character,
gotcha.
there's this character in Falcon and Winter Soldier she recruits, and
Yeah.
um, so that'll be interesting to see them come together and close out Phase 5 and how
Yeah.
that all works. That'll be July 26, 2024.
Hmm.
That's the end of Phase 5. Then Phase 6, the final phase of the multiverse saga. There's like 10 projects that showed up, all these different release dates, right, on the big screen in Hall H. They only revealed 3 of them though. They revealed it's kicking off with Fantastic Four,
Oh, they're
which
gonna
will
reboot
be
it again?
they're going to reboot that. It'll all
Are
be
they?
in the
Okay.
MCU,
No
all new
Miles Teller.
cast. Yeah, right. Exactly. November 8th, 2024, Fantastic Four will arrive.
Okay.
May 2nd, 2025, Avengers: The Kang Dynasty. So this villain
Another
Kang,
Avengers film.
another Avengers film, will be
Wow.
2025,
Huh.
and that'll be interesting to see who the lineup is, who are the
Yeah.
Avengers, at that
Right.
point.
They might not even
Um,
know yet. I mean, I'm sure they don't. It's
yeah,
they're probably just starting the script, maybe at
exactly.
best. Yeah.
So that will be the last 2 films of the Phase 6 is the Kang Dynasty and another Avengers movie. So we're actually getting 2 Avengers movie in 1 year, which has never
Wow.
happened.
Yeah.
There'll be the 2 Avengers movies. The final Avengers film of Phase 6 is called Avengers: Secret Wars. And Secret Wars is one of the biggest events in comic book history. It's up there with, Infinity War and all that. It's basically every Marvel superhero faces off against every Marvel villain, basically, is what they
Really?
did. All the
Okay.
X-Men, all the Fantastic Four, all the Avengers are
That's a
all
big
together.
promise. That's a big promise.
It's huge. I mean, it's the biggest, thing they could possibly do.
There could
So
be
that
some
will arrive.
CGI in that movie.
Yeah, there might be some. There might be some. That will arrive November 7th, 2025.
Wow. Okay.
So they have ambitious plans, Marvel,
Wow. Yeah.
and that'll be a lot to look forward to. I'm guessing there's another event Disney does called D23, I think in September, where they'll probably announce a few more of those Phase 6 films. I'm guessing maybe some casting, maybe some directors, because Fantastic Four right now does not have a director. John Watts
Mm.
was attached. He was the guy that did all the Spider-Man movies, and he decided to leave.
Okay.
So that film does not have a director currently. They asked Kevin Feige after the panel if the Russo brothers were going to come back, because the Russo brothers have been asked multiple times, when are you guys going back to Marvel? What are you guys going to do? They're like, we're not really interested unless they do Secret Wars. Then we might come back because that's one of our favorite comics.
Oh.
But Feige was asked point blank, are the Russo brothers doing it? They've been wanting to do it. And he said, no, I don't think they're going to do it. They're not interested. So I don't know, for whatever reason, they're not going to come back, but I'm kind of glad they're getting fresh blood in there and going to have a newer director do it.
We'll let the Russo brothers produce more content like Gray Man. That sounds good to me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. They need to do different things, which I think is good. So yeah, that's all the big news out of Comic-Con. It was a lot that Marvel dropped. I mean,
Yeah.
compared to what DC did, it was just a totally different world.
Yeah.
So yeah, very, very exciting stuff. Anything out there stand out as something you're particularly looking forward to?
I mean, multiple things you
Yeah.
mentioned.
Yeah.
I guess the Fantastic Four thing, I never really gravitated toward those characters to begin with, so I'm
Yeah.
surprised they're trying a reboot. I feel like Marvel feels like they can do no wrong, so
Right.
they're going back at some of this stuff that has
Sure.
failed twice before, you know.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, what was one of the first films you mentioned? The DC film.
Oh, DC Shazam,
Shazam. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, that one's. When did you say that one's coming out?
December 21st.
December 21st. Yeah, that one for sure, because that really took me by surprise. You know,
Yeah.
the Shazam film, and it's great action and hilarious. But
Yeah.
I don't know, there's just a bunch in there that
Yeah.
that sound really entertaining.
Yeah,
that I'm sure I'll be lining up for. You know, I'm less so into the animation, but it's good to cover it and
sure.
indicate where it factors into the universe.
All right. And our final topic here on this episode of the Real World Podcast is Nope, the new movie from Jordan Peele. I got to see it opening night, had a blast with it. I'm going to go spoiler free here. It was funny because last week we discussed our most memorable movie theater experiences, and I mentioned that I do not seek out horror films. Not a favorite genre. Don't like
And then you
being
promptly went
scared.
and saw one.
Right, exactly. I guess it inspired me.
Yeah, maybe.
But no, I mean the reason I went is because Jordan Peele. I mean he's I seek out good filmmakers, and he's proven himself with both Get
Yeah.
Out and Us, that
Hmm.
he just knows how to tell a story cinematically. He does a really good job with both of those movies. So I had to see it. Went with my brother. Found an AMC gift card I got for my birthday, and we went out and saw it on Thursday night with a pretty packed audience. It was an earlier showing, and it did well this weekend. It made $44
Did it?
million. So
Okay.
pretty good weekend. It was number one at the box
Probably not a
office.
huge budget on that film, I
No,
would
I
think.
want to say it was like 20 million.
Yeah, the marketing's
Very
probably a bigger budget than that.
exactly right,
Yeah.
right. And all his movies have been very low budget, which
Yeah.
I think
That's what's
is
so
really
smart about him.
it is. It's very smart, and
Mhm.
it shows his creativity.
Mhm.
That he doesn't need all the bells and whistles to tell a great story. You know,
Big name. He doesn't need big names. Yeah.
yeah, not even big actors in his movies. You're right.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
this Nope movie might be his most unknown cast.
Hmm.
Yeah, not
Right.
very many big actors in this at all, and they all do a phenomenal job. He really his casting is spot on in all of his movies, but in this one particularly, there's an actor, Brandon Perea. Brandon Perea just really blew me away. I've never seen him in anything. I don't know if he's done anything big, but he just really knocked it out of the park. Stephen Yoon does a really good job here as well. Kiki Palmer and Daniel Kaluuya are kind of the main characters, and they're also tons of fun to watch. They're a brother sister pair that are kind of like polar opposites in a way, and they're just tons of fun to watch on screen. The movie, it's a bit slower paced, which I think some horror films are, and they use that to their advantage, as this one does. It's kind of paced like a Western. It has a lot of like Western vibes. It's a lot of
Mm.
it's set out in kind of like the deserts of California.
Oh, really?
And it just has a cool look to it, a unique look that you don't see in film very often anymore. He was inspired by, several Westerns. He kind of wanted to like deconstruct the Western in a way here and kind of turn it on its head, mix it with a sci-fi movie. I don't know how much you know about it. Do you know kind
I
of?
didn't even watch the trailer. I know that it has something to do with ETs, with
Yeah,
aliens. Yeah.
UFOs is kind of the plot
Oh, okay.
is
Okay.
UFOs, and so he does a great job with, like in all his films, he kind of subverts expectations. He doesn't really go the way you think he's going to go.
Yeah.
You kind of
Yeah.
guess it's going one way because he's aware of all these genre tropes, because
Yeah.
these
For
kinds of
sure.
movies have been around for so long
Yeah.
that audiences kind of know what to expect going in. But this is not
Mhm.
Signs. It's not War of the Worlds. It's nothing like that. It's very much
Hmm.
its own kind of take on it.
Good.
It's shot so well. Hoyte
Yeah.
van Hoytema, who's a frequent collaborator of Chris Nolan's. We talked about him fairly recently on the podcast. He did Tenet, he did Interstellar, he did Dunkirk. He really does a great job shooting this movie. It looks excellent. From what I understand, they used a lot of IMAX cameras. I
Really?
did not get to see it in IMAX, but I understand it's really good in IMAX. But it's interesting because it has this very, I mean, there's basically four characters in the whole movie.
Oh, really?
And yeah, it's a very small cast. And it's a very intimate feeling film, much like I think Us and Get Out very much have that vibe too. Small
Well, it
scale,
reminds me.
intimate.
Yeah, it reminds me of Signs, the way you're talking. Like
Yeah, I mean, it definitely
slow
has
paced, intimate cast.
vibes of Signs at times for
Really?
sure.
Okay. Yeah. Good. Yeah.
And that was actually one of the movies he had his cast watch before making this.
Mm.
A lot of directors do that. They'll say, "Hey, watch these movies
Okay.
before we shoot. That way, you kind of get a vibe for what we're doing." And that was one of them. Close
Huh.
Encounters of the Third Kind was another one.
Okay.
Jaws, King Kong, Wizard of Oz, 2001: A Space Odyssey, Jurassic Park, and No Country for Old Men. So that kind of gives you a vibe of like what he's going for. Use of sound is very good here. I found it really stood out to me the way he would use sound, drop sound out at times, the way he would use score, which is excellent. Score is really good. The way he would use soundtrack as well, were all very, very well done. It's typical of Peele to have a very layered story. All
Yeah.
his movies have that going on. They kind of work on multiple levels, and this is no exception. He's kind of
Nice.
commenting on other things about society and about the entertainment industry here
Okay.
that are really
Huh.
interesting and really, really compelling, I found. So he's just a great writer. He writes all his movies. He's a great visual storyteller, directs his cast very well. And I just had a great time watching it. It's, again, one of those movies that's just different. If you're looking for something unique, you found your movie. This is the one to go see. So I really had a good time with it. My brother really liked it. He had never seen any of Jordan Peele's films,
Oh,
and
oh,
he still came away with it, getting a lot out of it. So he's going to go back and watch the other ones now.
nice.
So yeah, really liked it. Really, really had a good time. I ended up at 4 stars. Really liked it.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
That's pretty impressive. And I didn't read any reviews, but I saw that reviews were kind of mixed. And so I was concerned that but I don't know what the reviews were for Get Out and Us either, you know.
Yeah, it is. I'm seeing it's getting more of a mixed reception than those films did.
Mm,
I think a lot of people have trouble with the third act because kind of acts 1 and 2, like I said, are a little bit slower, a little more deliberately paced. And so if the payoff isn't there for you, then you're probably not going to have a good time with the movie.
gotcha.
For
Yeah.
me, the third act worked really well.
Yeah.
I really
Yeah.
enjoyed it. And
I can't wait to
so,
see it. I can't wait to
yeah,
see it.
yeah, I know you're a big fan of both Get Out and Us, so
Yeah.
I think you're gonna have a good time with it.
Nice.
And yeah, I was trying to count how many times they said nope in the movie, but I lost track. Um,
Gotcha. That's
uh,
funny.
yeah. All right. Well, that will do it for us here on the Real World Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us on episode 13. Go back and watch our previous episodes if you haven't already. Be sure to give us a like, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell to get notifications. Those things all help us greatly here on the channel. We really appreciate the support. Also, share this on social media. We're on all the social media sites, but if you can share this with your friends, we would really appreciate it. All the links are in the description below to all of our social media sites. We're also both on Letterboxd. If you're on Letterboxd, we highly recommend getting on there so you can rate and review movies with your friends. Thanks, Bert, for joining us. Really enjoyed this episode.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Great. All right. We'll see you guys next time right here on The Real World.